thank you for joining us. We are covering the topic of concept to complete. So originally it said the 5 biggest obstacles. We decided to just add one more obstacle to the fun. So we are tackling the 6 biggest obstacles with SMEs for content gathering. SMEs, if that's not a term you regularly use, subject matter experts is what we call our partners that we work with to build courses. So next. And I'm Shannon Eves. I'm an instructional design coordinator with Texas A&M AgriLife.
And I am Tara Moore, and I am.
You have to talk louder because
I have to talk louder. Okay.
So we need to switch.
or you could just
should definitely switch.
Yeah. Okay. If the microphone's over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I'm loud. It'll hear me.
Okie dokie. As I was saying, I'm Tara Moore. We have the same title. We do the same thing. We both have small teams of instructional designers that build online courses. So you can go ahead and change it. So who are we? We work with Texas A&M AgriLife, and AgriLife is under the A&M umbrella, but it is a state agency that is independent of the university, although a lot of our SMEs are also dual appointed to research or the university as professors. So within AgriLife, we work with educational development and engagement, shortened to just EDE. Our team is about 50 people, and so we partner. We are a professional service unit, and so that just means that we partner with the different agencies, be it extension, research, forest service. There's a few there. And so we're collaborating with them to help them create high quality, engaging, and accessible educational resources. So we specifically on the instructional design coordinator side are focusing on online courses, but our team also does multimedia publications, physical products, and a bunch of different things.
Okay, so some things that all of our SMEs have in common, and we lovingly refer to them as SMEs. So they're friggin' busy. So as Tara said, we aren't the norm when it comes to most of the people here with instructional design, because we are not designing courses for college students. So working within the A&M umbrella, the platforms that we're working with, we're still working with adult learners, but the majority of the courses that we work with are going onto an online platform, a commercial continuing education platform. So we're providing content for like continuing education, for professional development, training resources. And so we have both an internal and an external platform. So we're developing training modules maybe for extension agents across the state, but we're also working with extension agents to create trainings for farmers across the state, or pest control professionals across the state, child care workers across the state. So it is a huge variety of content, huge variety of people that we are working with. But the common thread is they're all busy, they all have competing priorities, and almost none of these people is their primary position or primary priority building an online course. Mm-hmm. So we are competing in their priorities. They have seasonal workloads, so they could be very busy at certain times of the year and then completely checked out and not checking email at all other times of the year. Often they're traveling, sometimes they're overseas. Another thing is that comes with their positions is they're under a lot of pressure. So their own performance evaluations and possibly grant funded programs that they're working with can be dependent on these outcomes. So they have they have their hands in a lot of different projects, and the project that they're working on with us may or may not be a high priority to them. It may just be something they were told to do, but it may not necessarily be something that they really want to do. And then they also they're looking to expand their reach. So they are realizing that digital education is a way for them to possibly reach a lot more learners than maybe a training that they're used to having to travel across the state to deliver in person. So that can be a motivating factor, but they're still being pulled in a lot of directions. And so part of their draw to us and part of what we're trying to communicate to them is we can help you expand that reach. And by working with us, we can help you reach a lot more people and with a lot less time in if you just designate a little bit of time now to work with us and get it up and going.
So again, those are things that all of our SMEs have in common. But what we did for this presentation is we picked out 6 different kind of conflicts that we'll often have with SMEs, and we kind of stereotyped that into a person. And so we have 6 different little characters here. We have some SMEs that might fall into multiple of these categories, but just focusing on kind of one obstacle at a time. First off, we have Paula the pie in the sky. This is the SME who comes to us with no idea what she wants, but she definitely wants it interactive and modern and very clean and polished, but she hasn't really thought through what those words mean. So maybe she says something like, I want 6 modules. And we say, okay, so a 6 module course. And then we get to talking to her and we realize that by module, she actually means these are individual courses that people would have to purchase separately. And so we say, okay, that's a course and we're going to need a very extended timeline. And so for that first kind of introductory meeting or that first series of meetings, sometimes we're just making sure that we're using the same vocabulary. A strategy for collaborating is letting her talk and then asking for her definitions. Hey, what do you mean when you say interaction? What do you mean when you say assessment? What does that look like in the past? Okay, let's reimagine how that could look for online. And then another strategy that we use, which I had a video of this, but the video wasn't working too well. So we provide a lookbook of options. And so this is 4 short videos that I created. They're me narrated, walking through a few different examples of online courses. So we show them what the homepage looks like. We show them what the different content items are look like. So we say, here's just a text-based format. It's not interactive at all. Here's some situations where you might want to use this. Here's storyline, here's Rise, here's video-based, and here's kind of the different circumstances when you would use each situation. And when they can see it in action, that kind of helps grease their wheels of putting vocabulary to what they're looking for.
Oh, yeah, this was sorry.
There we go. Okay, next we have Lester the liaison. So Lester is the guy that has no real decision-making power. He is just the middleman. And so another obstacle that comes with that is he's got competing priorities. So Lester is often maybe a title like a program coordinator, something of that nature, to where there may be a whole team of SMEs, a whole team of subject matter experts, and they took this one position and said, okay, you're going to be the one that goes and communicates with the instructional designer to get this course built. So he's the one that's in charge of communicating with us and handling all the stuff, but he doesn't really have the power to actually make decisions. So we have a lot of empathy for Lester. So some strategies in collaborating. Lester can be great when you use him in the right way, because the good thing is he is one POC. He is one point of contact. So he can be your filter in communicating with all that whole group of SMEs that may have very different ideas and opinions about what the course looks like or what goes into the content. So the main strategies in collaborating with Lester is what we call a collaboration brief. It's not a contract. So the key thing with the collaboration brief, we don't call it a contract and we don't have them sign it, but we do issue it to them. So it's a brief. It's basically a statement to say, these are our terms and conditions, and we told you that these are our terms and conditions. Because we are a service organization, we don't get to decide who our customers are. When they come to us and submit a request for us to build a course, it's really not optional for us. So this is really the way that we have this is our only way of maintaining any type of control, for adherence to processes and guidelines. To be able to have a paperwork trail that says, yes, we will build your course, but we also notified you in the very beginning that these are our requirements, these are our standards, these are our rules. So issuing that collaboration brief up front and making sure that Lester knows that he needs to, it's his job to communicate that to everybody that's in charge is going to be key.
And we do CC their department head.
Yes, CC the department head. So again, you just make him your POC. He is your point of contact, and making sure that he knows that it's his responsibility to gather all the feedback and gather all the information on his end, but it's also his responsibility to take everything that you're communicating to him and disseminating it to the rest of his team. So here is an example of our collaboration brief, and this is really a two-page. Oh, I'm sorry. This is really a two-page document, but it's showing side by side here, the front and the back. So the maroon box that we have there is highlighting where it says EDE, which is our department, reserves the right to refuse any adjustments or additions to your content once production has begun. We communicate this upfront and often. We communicate it early and often. That's what I was looking for, early and often. So what some of the key things that you'll see with the collaboration brief is we have our task timeline, we have the responsible party, and then the due dates. So we issue this whenever we say content is finalized. So we have basically three stages of production: pre-production, which is when we're gathering and finalizing content; production, when we're actually building the course; and then post-production, when we're doing reviews and final edits and beta testing, alpha testing, all of those things. So you can see that this starts with when content is finalized, because your content gathering window, at least for us, our SMEs a lot of the time are not held to a deadline, because we're not going by semesters or a school year. This just may be a concept or an idea or something that they want to do. And unless it's a grant associated project that has a hard deadline, their department may not have a hard deadline. It may just be a wish, or they may not have a reasonable deadline. So this is our way of, depending on the scale of the project, we get to quantify that for them and give them an actual visible due dates, so that they also have reasonable expectations of how long it takes us to build something. Because a lot of the time they don't understand that when we tell them, oh, no, 1 hour of content takes 2 weeks to develop. They don't understand that a 12-hour course can take potentially half a year for us to build. So this lines all that out for them up front. So once we actually have all the content finalized, meaning they're saying, yes, this content is exactly the way I want it to go in the course. These are the images I want used. This is the scripts that I want. These are all the things. These are all of the modules. I'm not going to give you 2 more modules once you start building it. Content is finalized. So that's what that first note means. Once you tell me, yes, this is all the content, it's finalized, I understand that edits may need to happen. State policies may change. Maybe verbiage has to change at some point. Maybe we need to swap out an image, but you shouldn't be rewriting 3 modules after I've started building the course. So this note gives me the right to say, I don't have to redo the whole course after I've already started building it, basically. So, and we can share this with y'all if y'all want to see, but most of this just pertains to our department, and some of the major issues that we have encountered. But that's a big one for us that, we put in there copyright considerations and a lot of other things. But the main thing is saying, hey, we have the right to say no to you over certain things.
So our next character is Cooper, the copyright menace, and he looks so genial. How could he ever be a menace? Well, he is, because he has been copying images that he got when he was in grad school. And as you can see, it's been a minute. So he might have scanned some textbooks. He might have copied some language from some research articles. Maybe he was an author on those research articles, maybe not. He maybe inherited photos from his predecessor. Was that a dinosaur? I'm not sure. He's been here for a minute, and it's nearly impossible to track down the source of his photos, unfortunately. So, stepping back on some context for this, copyright might not be as big of a deal in a university setting where you're protected by fair use laws. For us, as Shannon mentioned, we are producing materials for open access online courses that anyone in the world can enroll in. Many of them are for profit, and so people are paying money to access these. And so fair use does not apply in our instance, and so we are held to copyright laws. And so for someone like Cooper, who maybe he's a professor and he's just been flying under the radar with all of these images, all of a sudden we're faced with replacing a 24, 60-hour course with hundreds or maybe even thousands of images that we don't know where they came from. And so strategies for collaborating with the likes of a copyright menace is education first, and maybe some gentle threats. Luckily not our team, but our agency has unfortunately been faced with some copyright lawsuits. And so sometimes name dropping some of his colleagues who might have experienced some of those challenges, the legal challenges that come with copyright infringement. And just helping Cooper understand that we're not trying to be difficult by saying we need to completely replace all of your images. We're just trying to protect you. And then from there, providing options for how we can replace those images. So one, and it sounds like I've heard a lot of other organizations throughout presentations mention y'all do have multimedia teams or a single person who can go out and kind of capture those things to replace images, shooting in the field, or what that might look like. We also have graphic designers in-house. So if it's like a map or a diagram or something, we can rebuild that for them. We also provide a form. So if it's maybe a colleague of his, maybe he was a co-author on a research article and he just needs the other author's permission to use those figures or something in his online course, he can reach out to them with the form that we provide that has the specific language for a for-profit online open access online course. So that way he has a paper trail that he's asked for permission and he's safe to use that.
Okay, next we have Rupert, the soon to retire. So Rupert, he wants his voice, he wants his slides, he wants his videos. He wants to leave a legacy. Assessa, what you say? Oh, my people don't need that. He's not concerned with accessibility. All right. So it's more common than you think. So strategies for collaborating with Rupert. Starting from the get-go with understanding and empathy. You want Rupert to know that you value his expertise. You value all that he has to offer. You find his legacy as valuable as he does, and that you are there to help his legacy reach everyone and to make it the best it can possibly be. So communicating up front and coming from that standpoint of understanding and empathy and, hey, Rupert, I am on your side. This is how we're going to make it really good. And then following that up with leaning on processes and standards. So we are fortunate in that we have kind of refined our processes and standards, and we have leadership that backs us up in adhering to those and enforcing those. So when, like I said, when you're not working within a university system where you have that overarching, accreditation standards or things like that, In this system, we have to create our own, and we rely on our leadership to back us up on those, which fortunately they do. So leaning on those props, say, I really understand, Rupert, I get you. However, this is, it's not me. These are our processes. These are our guidelines. These are the rules. I'm just here to help you follow them. One thing I forgot to mention about Lester, and we don't have to go back to the Lester slide, but when I said he doesn't have decision-making power, when we talk about that finalizing content, a point that I meant to make, something that I always have to emphasize over and over and over again to people in that type of position is who has the ability to change content. Anybody that has the ability to, anyone that has decision-making authority on this content needs to understand, needs to say, yes, they need to review it and say, yes, at this is the review window. This is the review point. Because every single time, and even though I say it 100 times, there are still people with decision-making authority that do not see the course until it is at the very end in the final review phase, and then there are things they're wanting to change, and that's what you're trying to prevent. So it has to be communicated. Anyone with decision-making authority needs to see this and okay it now before you start up. Yes. It's too much. Oh, you're gonna love the last one. You're gonna love the last one.
So next up we have Izzy the Innovator, and this is an SME who thinks she could do your job. She does not understand accessibility. She does not understand the fine-tuning of the settings that go into building a course. She doesn't understand, unfortunately, pedagogy, how adults learn. She has a lot of new and fancy tools, and she wants to show off how innovative and fresh she can be without really any consideration for learning or student experience or, unfortunately, accessibility. So some of these are patterned off of real people, and the real person that this is an example that made me think of this character. We had someone who wanted to use AR video in her online course, and she did not consult us, and she went out and she found a tool, and by the time she had created it and we were ready to launch the online course, the tool was no longer supported, and also it was never accessible in the first place. So we were able to link out to it and it wasn't a fun topic. That's probably not appropriate to say. I'll tell you later if you're interested. But it just wasn't right for the course, and it didn't support learning. And so ultimately, to appease her, we linked out to it, but it wasn't a required part of the course. And so, yeah, she has an iPad and she's not afraid to use it. Another example, sometimes they'll go out and they'll just shoot on-the-fly content or photos or videos that don't meet our internal quality standards as a kind of an overlapping theme here. And so strategies for collaborating with someone who doesn't really understand all of the intricacies that go into creating meaningful learning, using customer testimonials. So if she doesn't respect me as an expert, maybe she'll respect one of her other colleagues, another specialist who is kind of a success story. This might be also like end user testimonials. So maybe we say, okay, we will do exactly what you want. And then we plug a feedback survey in there, and then we feed those results back to her and say, I told you so. Here's how we can fix your problems if you would have listened to us in the beginning, but of course framing that more nicely and just using those customer testimonials. So again, it's not just us trying to be difficult. We say, here's the facts and the data to back that up. At the end of the day, we do just have to have some hard boundaries and have things that, if it's not accessible, if it's not compliant, we unfortunately can't use it or can't push it for the learners, and just kind of knowing where that hard line is.
Okay, so this is the sixth one that we added because this has become my specialty. Debbie, the deadline dodger. So unfortunately, like I said, we're working with a lot of people that some of our SMEs may be faculty, but the courses that they're working on with us are typically not courses that follow any kind of a semester schedule. So the deadlines and windows that we have for projects can vary greatly. The expectation of SMEs to meet those deadlines can vary greatly. The biggest challenge is when it is a grant funded project that has a hard deadline by that is being enforced by the organization that is paying for it. And so those deadlines are non-negotiable. Unfortunately, that means that we can run into situations where if we're working with someone like Debbie doesn't think that your deadlines that you're giving to her, the deadlines you give her for the project to keep it moving along don't apply to her, but you still have to meet the overall project deadline. So that can be a problem. So strategies for communicating and collaborating with somebody like Debbie. Make sure that you're communicating those expectations early and often. So Debbie needs to know, she needs a reality check from the beginning saying, if you need this course done by this date, then you need to go in reverse and say, that means I need content finalized by this date. And always build in cushion for yourself. Always put an extra week or two in there where you can. So communicating that expectation early, and then again, often, reminders, calendar invites, emails, constant reminding that, and creating project timelines like we saw in the collaboration brief. That needs to be given very early on. And then every time a deadline is missed on her end, that whole project timeline needs to shift accordingly. And you need documentation of that. So that collaboration brief timeline, adjusting it as she misses deadlines so she can see that you missing your deadline is not now giving me less time to build it. You are shifting the entire project deadline. And documenting everything. So every time there's a deadline missed, emailing that new project deadline, making sure that everything should be over email. There needs to be a paper trail for everything, because basically it comes down to if a grant deadline gets missed, that's going to be a big deal. If Debbie has to go ask for an extension on her grant deadline, you need to make sure that she can't come back and point the finger at you and say that it was your fault. So having a paper trail for all of that. And then also something I didn't put in there, but also being flexible. Build it into that timeline to where, okay, maybe I put in here that she has 2 weeks to review the course in the first rolling review. Maybe it can actually be done in a week. So if she's a week late on getting her content to me, then I can borrow a week from that. I'm like, okay, Debbie, but now you have 1 week less to review it on this end. So having some built-in cushions throughout the timeline, so that everything is not so tight it's down to the wire. Having some understanding for Debbie, not being too firm and unwavering. But also, being a little bit firm. So sometimes we have to renegotiate priorities. If, things happen sometimes, maybe there was a natural disaster and, I was working on a course with, wastewater management people. And so it's, about flooding in urban areas and stuff. So if a hurricane had hit Houston and flooded half of Houston during the time I'm working on this project, obviously that SME is gonna, he might miss some deadlines during that time, things happen. So having some empathy and flexibility, and then when those things happen, giving them choices to adjust priorities. Okay, maybe now our production window is closing a little bit, so maybe we have to streamline the project a little bit. Maybe we have to cut out some interactions. Maybe we have to, where are we going to reduce things? And giving them the options of, okay, is it better for you to ask for a deadline extension, or is it better for you to have a course that's on time, but maybe not quite as interactive as you wanted it to be? So giving them choices with wherever their priorities lie.
So there are some strategies, and we repeated ourselves in a few different contexts, but so there are some that overlap with any type of person that you're working on. And the first one, and I think this kind of overlaps with all of the other bullet points here, is just to focus on shared goals and let them know that you're here to help them. You are an expert in your own right, bleeding into the next bullet, but you're here to make them look good. You're here to help them broaden their reach, make more money, collect more data, be more competitive for future grant funding opportunities, or whatever that looks like for them. And so that requires a minute of just building that relationship and figuring out what those goals are in order to speak their language.
Absolutely. And like Tara said, the first two bullets kind of go together. Presenting yourself and your team as experts that can make them look good. And this isn't a pompous thing. It's a, hey, you know wastewater management. I know instructional design. When we put those two things together, then that can make some amazing, learning opportunities for everybody that you're trying to reach. Like, use me and what I bring to the table to make your stuff look awesome. And that's one of the main shared goals. And so anytime, one thing that I kind of like, I guess I kind of do it naturally because I was an ag major. And so I was super excited to kind of come full circle in my career and come back to working with extension, because I originally in college wanted to be an extension agent. So I'm naturally kind of excited and enthusiastic about a lot of the topics that we work on. But I use that when I'm communicating with SMEs. I let them know I'm excited about their content. When I worked on one with green infrastructure, I was like, hey, I was just learning about this. My husband does like urban design stuff, and he was telling me about this kind of stuff. So this is so cool that I'm getting to work on a course with it now. I did one on, with the Texas Sea Grant on, training to be a weighmaster for fishing tournaments. And I was like, I'm so excited. I used to go fishing in the Gulf Coast with my dad when I was a kid. He's going to think this is the coolest thing that I am working on this course. So anything that I can find to connect with them and let them know that I care about their content too, and that I care about their learners, and that we're both invested in this content and the people that it's reaching, the more they trust me and know that I'm on their side.
So talking about all of those different contexts and all of the different kind of unique problems that we're trying to solve, something important to remember in every project is there's no one size fits all approach, and compromises are going to have to be made. We have to know what our non-negotiables are. So going back to before, that's anything that's the law, accessibility, copyright, user experience, and functionality. Those are things that we absolutely cannot bend on, but there are some things that in other contexts, maybe that's best practice, but considering that your users are mostly rural, maybe something more interactive won't work well for them. Maybe we need to be thinking about like download speeds or different things like that. And just thinking through how is their course unique? How are their audiences unique? And letting them kind of have their own personality in their course and being willing to compromise on that to let the course be personalized for them.
Okay, and I know this doesn't necessarily apply to all IDs and the way that y'all work, but at least for us in the way that we do things, don't start until content is finalized. So and what I mean by that is it finalized is we know that changes can happen, but we don't want big changes. And that's what we tell our SMEs, that you shouldn't be rewriting an entire module after I've already started building it, because a lot of our stuff is narrated. If we've already put in time to record narration, professionally record narration and edit it and create videos and all of this, and now you're rewriting half the content, that is a huge waste of time and resources. And our department does not have that kind of time and resources to waste. So making sure they understand, I'm not going to start building this module 1 while you're still writing module 4, because a course, we need to see the entire scope of the complete course. You need to have all your objectives. We need to have all the things together before we start building it. Because the other problem, unfortunately, is if I start building module 1 while they're still writing module 4, those competing priorities come back into the picture, and module 4 may never get written. And then all the time I spent building module 1 is now a waste because the project is dead. So that's another, it's also an incentive for them to get all their content to you and make sure that it's ready to go, because if they know that you're not starting until that point.
So this next bullet point, listen and send follow-up emails. I think this is very similar to what we were talking about with Debbie, the deadline dodger, but it can be deadlines or it can be really anything. A lot of times, and we've mentioned grants a few times, a lot of times we're meeting with an SME to have kind of a concept or a discovery meeting, and then it might be a few months until we find out if the grant has been awarded, or it might be a seasonal issue where they say, hey, I want to meet about this, but I'm about to be in the field or out of the country for a while. So there might be some space between the time that we meet to discuss and kind of conceptualize the content and when we actually get started. And sometimes what I've noticed is what they initially tell us and then what they come back to actually do, there's a lot that changes in those times. And sometimes they don't remember that it's changed. And it looks bad on us if we come in expecting to talk about one thing and they're already 10 steps ahead. And so a strategy that we've used for that is to listen well in those meetings, ask a lot of questions and let them do most of the talking, and then document that and send that back to them in an email. So that way we have the paper trail to say, hang on, this is what we originally talked about. Here's what I understood. Talk to me about how you got to this new place now. So that way they can kind of be reminded and take us down the path and we have a shared understanding of the project.
Yes. Also being sensitive to political dynamics. So no matter who our SMEs are, I mean, within any education or university system, there's some politics at play. There's a political dynamics. There's a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. So knowing what that hierarchy is, knowing who you're speaking to and what the connections are is going to be imperative. Also, for example, in our situation, and I had to learn this as I was coming into the organization, that about a year or two before I came in, we have this thing called centralization happen. And I kept hearing everybody refer to it, and I was like, I don't know what they mean. Like I had to ask somebody to explain it to me, because obviously every time I kept hearing about it, I was hearing about it in the context of that it was a touchy subject with our SMEs. And so I had somebody explain it to me, and basically all the departments within Coles, all these people are all the colleges or all the departments within College of Ag have their own people, like their own instructional designer, their own multimedia specialist, so they all had their own internal people. Well, then A&M AgriLife decided to consolidate all that into one organization of administrative services. So they all lost their own individual people, and it was all consolidated into, okay, these are the administrative services people that service everybody in the organization. So basically our department became a department, 2020 is when, and then we renamed ourselves and have continued to expand since then. So our roles have changed drastically over the last 5 years. Our department has changed and grown drastically over the last 5 years. And not all these SMEs, especially if they're university faculty, not all of them have adjusted to that. And some of them aren't even completely aware of it because they may not have worked with us much, if at all, in the last 5 years. So they're still wondering, where did my person go that was here in my building? Oh, they're over there 6 with you. Ago. Yeah. Oh, they're over there with you now. Well, you still, and they want to talk to us like you work for me. And some of them say that. Mm-hmm. So being sensitive to just being aware and knowing that that's the history, and knowing that some people are still upset about that, and that there were different ways of working with people then, I can't have an attitude and go, I don't work for you. We're partners in this. Like, I have to know that, well, this is what they were used to. And this was a very traumatic experience for them, even if I wasn't here and I wasn't the one that caused it. Yes.
Just you have 5 minutes.
Okay, we're on our last.
Yeah.
Last bullet point. So another strategy for working with any type of SME is to reinforce the differences between online and in-person training. So almost universally, our SMEs are out in the counties, they are hosting trainings. A lot of times they're recording them or they're doing them on Teams or just a recorded video, and they want to just upload that and send it out and charge $500 for it. And true story. And
100% true story.
Explaining to them the needs of online learners and how that might be different from their normal audience that they're used to speaking to face to face, and how accessibility, of course, comes into play, how segmentation and having that more bite-sized learning approach comes into play, and searchability and different things, how explaining to them that people are coming into the modules looking to answer specific questions, whereas maybe they're coming here in person for more of a community, more of a conversational approach, and how it's really different strategies for reaching those learners and helping them have a positive experience with the course. And so just kind of walking them through the process of, okay, you have your information, let's take a step back and completely reimagine how we're going to package that for a different audience.
And those are QR codes for our emails. For our LinkedIn. Is it for our LinkedIn? Yeah. Oh, I don't really update my LinkedIn a lot, but you can still scan the QR codes. I think my USO picture needs to be in there.
Don't use.
You should have told me.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So how many people?
Everyone's gonna call.
How many people are in your team?
Okay, just so FYI, if you look at my LinkedIn, please be aware I'm a military spouse, so I've had a lot of different jobs in a short time frame. So
we have some questions here on the chat. Great. So someone asked how many people are on our team. So Shannon and I think we both supervise 2 people. So that's 2 ID teams of 3 people. Our educational development and engagement team as a whole is 50 people, and that includes warehouse workers, customer service, editors, videographers, the gambit. So,
and we do have, so Tara and I work with the 2 non-college platforms. We do have one ID, and she has a team or an IDC. She does the same thing that we do, but she does it to support College of Ag with accessibility and all of their stuff in Canvas.
So which platform do you use?
So we work on D2L. Brightspace is our public facing platform, and then we use LMS 365 within SharePoint for our internal platform for AgriLife employee trainings that we build.
They called it the SME roast session.
Oh
no! It was perfect, and it was exactly right. And I
SME roast.
I will say there are some people that I had in mind that I genuinely love working with, and have had success in kind of conquering those obstacles, and now it's a great relationship. So not a roast fest. I do not.
No, and I meant to say that from the beginning. This is just, we have had to, there's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of, because we work with such a vast diverseness of SMEs, that we come across a lot of things, and there's a lot of hurdles. And so we find value in being able to navigate those, and we want to be able to pass that on, if how to successfully navigate those type of challenging situations. And really, I look at it, I think Tara and I both, we look at whenever we face these I'm a problem solver by nature. So when I have these, I just really look at them as opportunities and just challenging situations. I mean, our job would be pretty boring if we didn't have some of these interesting
True,
SMEs
yeah.
throwing these different hurdles at us. I'm like, I haven't heard that one before. Like, so we really do. And they all have their redeeming qualities.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
next year we do one on, ideal SMEs.